I really needed to get into this a month ago. I just didn't have the time. It's about a topic I don't often talk about on this stream, but, increasingly it's become something that's like more and more cropping up because it's bleeding out into the industry as a whole. And that is, TSM, primarily known as a League of Legends organization. They were having an investigation done, about workplace bullying. And the results came in, and the results are that classic esports reality of, we all know something bad is happening, but we're going to use every linguistic trick and loophole in the book to prevent any form of accountability whatsoever. And I think I got played a little bit in this story as well. So we'll set it up. Back when I was doing the story about TSM did their investigation into the coach that we did, the Peter Zhang story that I ran and published. And they said, yes, we found out that Peter Zhang was sort of taking money from players and putting it into bank accounts. We couldn't really get our head around what's going on or why it would be proper, but we definitely made the right decision in terminating his contract, and we're not going to work with him again. They also, on the same day, dropped their investigation about Reginald bullying in the workplace. In fact, before we get to the results, I'll refresh your memory of the original story. It was run by Cecilia D'Anastasio over at Wired. We did mention it on a stream very briefly, so I won't go into reading the whole article, but here it is. Riot Games is investigating a top esports team founder over bullying allegations, and obviously that surprises absolutely no one. And why do I say that? Well, and this was at the start of the year. This was in January. We're in June now at the time of recording this. So it surprises absolutely nobody. And why do I say that? Because he did a lot of this on fucking video anyway. And people just allowed it. People just tolerated it because it's esports. He gets to be a piece of shit. He gets to bully people. He gets to dehumanize people and treat them like garbage because he makes money for people, because he's popular, because he has a bunch of aspirational teenage fans who all want to be like him. So just like every other bad person that ever comes through our fucking doors and does genuine harm, right, we let it slide. Bobby Kotick gets to slide. Mark Merrill gets to slide. Reginald gets to slide. All of the players that do outrageous shit, we just let it slide. We let it slide because we make money. And now, by the way, they're not even the worst people at the table. So how can we get angry about it? How can I get angry over Reginald making an employee cry when we have Saudi Arabian people saying, if you don't tell me who made the decision for Riot not to work with Neom, I will pull a gun out from under the table and shoot you. It's just what I mean. It's over. Esports is over. It's over. It's just corporate America now. It's just global geopolitics, corporate nightmare, same as everything else. So you can't get upset about this, guys, because there are worse players here now. Before we let this get out of control, we needed to get those guys, and we didn't. We turned a blind eye. Oh, they're popular, Richard. Oh, they make money. Oh, it's just one mistake. But don't you ever fucking tweet anything? Don't you ever act in self-defense? It's really weird how the whole industry can come together to attack the iconoclasts, isn't it? The ones that leave the money on the table, the ones that don't make money for other people, the ones that don't set themselves up to be aspirational for teenage idiots. It's weird, isn't it? It's weird. The industry wastes no time in wanting to push those people out. A guy like this, dozens of allegations of bullying, fine. Completely fine. And, even when people like Mark Merrill go, yeah, love me some Reggie. By the way, love me some fucking Mark Merrill too, homie. Right? It's just a fucking layer cake of terrible human beings. I was doing something. Hang on, I was doing an article, as is my way. And I wrote this paragraph in it. And then I took it out, because this was a while ago. And I thought, I better not leave this paragraph in, because I think people will get upset. And maybe Deserter will get upset. But I said, let me summarize the modern esports business model in a way that anyone can understand. Scum use narcissists to exploit morons to make money. And 99% of the entities that do that still fail at it. That's where we find ourselves in esports. We have become the latest corporate chew toy, soon to be discarded once we've lost all our spring and vigour. And I wrote that and I thought, better take that out, because people aren't ready to hear that. But it's the truth. Reginald is one of those narcissists, and narcissists generally don't play nice with other people who aren't narcissists. And to a degree, they do play better with other narcissists, because narcissists, even though they think they're the best people in the room, they're also really good at manipulating other people because they instinctively believe that they're above them. So, you know, it is what it is. Anyway, they started this investigation. It went on for ages. Riot were doing this investigation as well. And there was a summary report that came in the Washington Post vertical called a Launcher by Mikhail Klementov. Not sure where I stand with him yet. I don't think he likes me very much. He reached out to me for comment on a match fixing story he was working on, and I just said I'll never talk to the Washington Post because your publication is without ethical standards. Sorry. I think he took that personal, which it isn't, but it just is, you know, how I feel. I don't want to drive traffic to these publications till they get their house in order. Right, well, we'll have to look at it in fucked up transparency then, unfortunately. But basically, you'll be able to see the headline. And they arrived at the conclusion that there had been several instances of workplace bullying across the two entities that they work with. You can probably just about make it out there. At TSM and Blitz, staff described toxic workplace and volatile CEO. And those were specifically were the allegations that were being levelled at him, that he was terrible and volatile when it came to giving feedback, which we know because we've seen it on video repeatedly by his own admission. There was people in the Washington Post story that were like saying he called them like garbage and stuff like this. And so on the day that I put out my story about Peter Zhang, they also simultaneously dropped the other report, and as a result, I never got to talk about it. I thought we were going to do a horseman on it. We never did, so it just sat there. But, right, here we are. Same day as the Peter Zhang story. Reginald Bro, everyone's favourite CEO account. Call yourself... No, don't change that, whatever you do. It's definitely appropriate now that you, as the CEO of a company, are making official workplace comments, work-related comments, company-related comments on an account called Reginald Bro. And you can see here, this is what his statement said. I say his, remember, if it's coherent, it's written by someone else. But in late November 2021, concerning claims were made by former employees, players, and other individuals about my behavior as TSM CEO. Upon learning about these investigations, TSM's board of directors immediately created a special board subcommittee and hired an independent outside investigator to begin an internal investigation. Not a great sentence. Maybe he did write it, I don't know. It was extremely important to me that this investigation was as in-depth and thorough as possible. So I fully recused myself from the process and also preemptively agreed to follow through on any recommendations from the subcommittee. After interviewing over 30 current and past employees and contractors, including all current League of Legends players, the investigator found no evidence of any unlawful behavior on the part of the company, its executives, or by me personally. In addition, not a single witness described any systemic and or isolated incidents of sexual harassment or gender discrimination. Now, you've probably seen what he's done there. First of all, the allegations were never that you broke the law, nor were the allegations that you had engaged in racism or gender discrimination or sexual harassment. The specific allegations were that you were essentially a workplace bully, which still comes, by the way, with its own issues and would still make you liable to potential action. You know, if someone wanted to sue the company for unfair dismissal or, constructive dismissal, or, if you developed a stress-related illness as a result of the harsh conditions under which you worked, for example. But no, what you do is I'm being accused of being a cunt. Now, as you can see, regarding the allegations of cuntery on my part, I did nothing illegal. Yeah, we know cuntery isn't illegal, is it? Being a cunt's not illegal. Jesus Christ, you could lock up all at Esports if that were true. But that's not what the allegations were. So it's the old Esports bait and switch. While going through this process, I realized I need to improve the way that I communicate with team members. Over the years, I have prided myself on having a management style that is direct, open, and honest. However, as the company has grown, it has become increasingly clear that my current communication style is not effective at times. Now, to call it a management style is ridiculous. You shouting at people if they don't do work to your standard is not a style. It's not a management style. It's not being direct and honest. It's being petulant and childish. It shows you don't have the personality skills or the social skills. You're not adult enough to be able to manage other people. In fact, everything you're saying, everything I've seen you do, compared, along with this statement here, if there was a genuine board of people that cared about this company and cared about the success of TSM as a brand, you would be moved to an ambassadorial role, and they would install a CEO that's competent. Obviously, for whatever reason, they can't do that, and so the farce will continue. But no, being a twat is not a management style. I want to be the best CEO and leader that I can be, and I have learned that there are many ways I can improve my communication and delivery when offering feedback. I have frustratingly asked my team members about their work and what value it creates, and at times saying their work creates no value. I understand that this can and does make people feel as if they think they are worthless. This is not my intent, and I am sorry. The bottom line is that my tone and delivery matters, and when I communicate with team members in ways like this, the result can be demotivating. Who knew? Being called worthless is demotivating. Madness. People are just too soft these days. In addition, there were concerns that were raised about me calling employees names. We started this company 12 years ago with a few people and would joke around with each other, giving each other nicknames such as Pokemon names or calling each other bots. Since then, our company has grown. I don't think anyone's complaining about those names, by the way. But anyway, since then, our company has grown exponentially, and I'm proud of the diverse group of employees who work with us, including many who do not have the same background that I do. With some of these early employees, we still tease and call each other names, but I understand this makes others uncomfortable and feel excluded, especially when they don't have context. That said, I will be more mindful of others and being inclusive while maintaining a fun culture. Moving forward, by the way, no one thinks working at TSM is a fun culture. I've yet to hear that one said by anyone. Moving forward, I'll be working with an executive coach to improve my communication. Certainly hope the coach meets your high standards, Reginald, and you're not calling them worthless or garbage. I have a suspicion that you won't actually be taking anything on board. To make sure our company culture supports and motivates our employees to achieve both company goals and their personal goals. In order to make sure our company holds all employees, including me, accountable, I'm working with members of my executive team to implement several company-wide initiatives, including a 3-month, top-to-bottom, full evaluation of our company culture. This will be a collaborative effort, and all employees, no matter their role, will play a significant part in this important initiative. Implementing an anonymous reporting hotline, aka the Reggie hotline, for anyone to share concerns in the workplace. Facilitating consistent and ongoing employee workshops with outside experts to re-emphasize our commitment to a positive and productive working environment. I began my professional esports journey as a teenager, and now, over a decade later, I am the proud founder and CEO of the world's most valuable esports organization. I am grateful for the opportunity to push my company to the next level. Can't help yourself. And I will take up this challenge in the same drive and determination that brought TSM here. It's very important to be open and honest with you, our fans and community, and to make sure you hear the truth directly from me. Although it isn't common, I would like to share our investigation summary to be fully transparent. So, I can actually show you the report. And I thought it was interesting because, again, because of the history of the law firm and the background, everyone was kind of like, "Oh, this is pretty rad." So, Gutierrez and Marker, they said that, they were brought in early November, all the things we know, and that they were investigating a number of complaints that were directed against Mr. Din, and they formed a special committee to investigate them. While an outside investigator was being retained, a former player for TSM made public statements regarding the alleged mistreatment of players and other TSM employees by Andy Din. This former player alleged, among other things, that Mr. Din abused and harassed players and other employees, and that the work and team environment at TSM was toxic as a result of Mr. Din's conduct. The employee then went public on various social media outlets about the complaints. Shortly after these public comments, Riot Games informed TSM and Mr. Din that it had opened a separate investigation into Mr. Din's conduct. By the way, they're almost certainly talking about Doublelift there, which we'll get to. Our investigation was separate from Riot Games, although we coordinated with their investigation regarding interviews of current Swift employees. Swift Media Entertainment is like the group of people that are doing this investigation. So, the investigation revealed that there was no unlawful conduct. Again, none of the witnesses interviewed or had witnessed or were aware of conduct or derogatory comments aimed at or based on any protected characteristics such as gender, race, religion, or sexual orientation. Specifically, and of particular note, given the male-dominated esport industry, all females interviewed did not feel that they were marginalized and or that gender prohibited their advancement. There was also no conduct observed in the workplace that was sexual in nature or harassing. In sum, there was no sexual harassment or gender discrimination. So good news. None of that. Now, those women weren't discriminated against because they were women. They were just treated like garbage and happened to be women. So that's fine. That's just another day in an esports org, apparently. The investigation did reveal that Mr. Din provided feedback to employees, including players, in an aggressive and harsh tone. Mr. Din admitted that he delivered feedback in a frustrated tone when deliverables were not met, and that his frustrated tone may not be the most productive way to convey his feedback. And you'll notice again that even in the legal letter, it's not Reginald's fault. It was the fault of the person that didn't hit. There's always an excuse, and I used to be a manager. Now, certainly, I didn't run the world's highly valued esports organization. I actually ran something that mattered. I actually ran a fucking energy department. And, I could, if you fucked up or didn't hit your deliverables, I can't scream in your face and say you're trash and threaten to fire you. There is still a fucking process that I have to follow. It's my job to make it so you can do your job, right? It's not just do this job. Oh, you failed at the job. You are shit. That's not management. That's not how that works. And so, but he only shouted at them because they didn't do their job properly. Won't anybody think about poor Reginald? It's a farce. It's a farce. Like, the whole thing is just, I take no responsibility whatsoever. I did the bad things, but there were reasons for me doing the bad things. 3 witnesses, 2 past employees, said they heard Mr. Din call employees names such as stupid or trash or worthless. All others said that when Mr. Din used these words, he was referring to the work product and not calling the employee stupid, trash, or worthless. No other words, such as F-word or other swearing, were mentioned. There were 6 employees, 4 past and 2 current of the 31 witnesses who characterized Mr. Din's conduct as being a bully and creating a culture of fear. The remaining 25 employees interviewed did not feel they were working in a culture of fear or a toxic workplace. There was 1 report of an employee crying as a result of Mr. Din's conduct. We will say nothing on these matters. Remedial efforts. And when they say remedial, they mean how we're going to remedy things, not the other meaning of the word remedial. This firm recommended, and Mr. Din immediately accepted, remedial efforts for himself and the group, including but not limited to mandatory executive coaching for himself, voluntary executive coaching for other executives, leadership training and culture building training, and an anonymous reporting hotline so employees can lodge complaints about any executive outside of the normal chain of command without fear of retaliation. Because, of course, no one will be able to figure out who it was at an esports talk. Now, the drama obviously didn't end there because it's esports, so why would it? So, back when this happened as well, and the reports dropped, and we had the TSM aren't complicit. It wasn't our fault. We didn't do anything wrong. We didn't do anything bad about Peter Zhang. We just gave him complete oversight, and he's just allowed to do whatever the fuck he wants, and did end up doing what the fuck he wants, and we didn't catch it, but it's not our bad. It's definitely all him. And Reginald didn't do anything illegal, even though this wasn't the complaint, and he did make people cry, and 6 employees said they felt he was a bully. But don't worry about that, because you've got a hotline now, a hotline that wouldn't be necessary if your CEO and your executives could actually fucking behave properly. The fact you even have that hotline is a tacit admission of fucking guilt, in my opinion. But whatever. And then, of course, they hit Doublelift up with a legal letter because it turned out Doublelift was indeed the person that they were accusing of having made all these allegations. Now, this was always going to come, in my opinion, ever since Doublelift left TSM, and particularly Lena left TSM. All they've done is sort of snipe at TSM, snipe at Reginald, even to the point where they tried to discredit me a little bit and said that Peter Zhang was probably innocent of all allegations, and this is why journalists should wait for the full story. Not like me, a streamer with no journalistic training or expertise whatsoever, who just reacts to any thought that comes in my brain like it's the gospel truth. But whatever, I'm all right with it. It doesn't matter. So they sent him a legal letter about all the things he was leaking and talking about on stream. And this is why increasingly it's becoming a standard in America that you have these non-disclosure agreements, but also non-disparagement clauses. They're in Europe now. I'd never sign a non-disparagement clause for real. Like, if you're cunt and I leave the company, I get to call you a cunt. That's it. I'm happy for it. I'm happy to not be able to disparage the company while I work there, but I don't want anything that stops me accurately criticizing you once I leave. I don't think that serves anybody. I think clauses like that are actually evil in some way, and I would not encourage anyone to sign them. But apparently, in esports, this is what you increasingly are starting to see across the board with organizations, and it's not making for a better scene, in my opinion. So this is the letter. It said, this is ESG, Electronic Sports and Gaming law firm that I'm sure you know, endemic to esports. It says, Dear Yiliang Peng, Doublelift, we represent Solo Mid Corporation and TSM LOL Incorporated, collectively known as TSM. Solo Mid Corp entered into the Content Creator Service Agreement dated August 27th, 2021 with you. TSM LOL Incorporated entered into a mutual termination agreement dated November 23rd, 2020 with you. The employment agreement and release agreement are collectively known forthwith as the agreement. On November 9th and 10th, 2021, you committed multiple material and uncurable breaches of this agreement during your Twitch live streams, during which, among other things, you repeatedly disparaged TSM, Andy Din, and Walter Wang, and disclosed confidential information. Specifically, you breached Section 11B of the employment agreement, in which you agreed you will not either during or subsequent to the term of this agreement directly or indirectly divulge the confidential information, disclose confidential information to anyone other than an employee, contractor, or agent of the company, or use the confidential information in any way other than in performing this agreement. Section 11C of the employment agreement, in which you agreed you will not privately or publicly, guys. You can't even disparage people privately. I couldn't even tell my fucking wife, God, my boss is an asshole. You will not privately or publicly disparage or make derogatory, pejorative, or offensive remarks about TSM or any person or entity affiliated with TSM. Section 6A of the release agreement, in which you agreed you shall not use or make any comments, writings, postings, recordings, public statements, or utterances to any third parties regarding, pertaining to, or otherwise associated with any confidential information without first receiving TSM's express written consent in each instance. Section 6C of the release agreement, in which you agreed that you will not at any time in the future make any defamatory, unprofessional, or disparaging statements about TSM, its officers, its players, its directors or employees, its business partners, including its business structure, business operations, business practices, or management of TSM. Effective immediately, we terminate the employment agreement for cause. Obviously, fair enough. In addition, TSM immediately demands that you immediately cease your disparagement of TSM and members of TSM and your disclosure of TSM's confidential information. TSM is currently evaluating each instance of your existing and ongoing breaches and exploring its legal options. TSM intends to pursue all available legal rights and remedies, including A, liquidated damages of $100,000 for each breach of Sections 11B and 11C of the employment agreement, liquidated damages of $200,000 for each breach of Section A and Section C of the release agreement, and C, recovery of all reasonable costs and attorney fees associated with any legal action against you. TSM demands, and this is the big one, so you know they're going to go ahead with it, they demand that you preserve all documents, tangible things, and electronically stored information potentially relevant to this dispute. And this includes refraining from deleting and guarding against the deletion of potentially relevant documents, tangible things, and electronically stored information. This may include, but isn't limited to, any information stored on digital communications like email, voicemail, text messages, Discord, email servers such as Gmail, streaming websites such as Twitch, including any VODs, and social media websites such as Twitter and Reddit. Please contact BB at ESG Law if you would like to discuss this matter. TSM reserves all of its rights and remedies under the agreements and at law. Sincerely, Bryce Blum. And so, obviously, by putting this letter out, Doublelift has essentially said, like, okay, let's fucking go to war, let's do it. But it's crazy to me that, I mean, there's loads, like, just fucked up and gross about this. The first instance is, yes, I agree that it's, like, sort of a bit childish and pathetic that Doublelift, who wouldn't have had a word said against TSM when he was there, when he was making money, when his girlfriend was, like, you know, vice president. It was all fair. It was all fun and games then. Anyone insulting TSM or saying anything bad about that, blah, blah, blah. Also, you know, you did sign a contract that this is overreaching. But what you have to remember is, like, in North America, this stuff is so boilerplate. They put it in everything, even though often, you know, states say it doesn't hold up. Like, if you go look at, there's a law in California, for example, called Silence No More. Because NDAs have become so widespread, and California is generally sympathetic to workers over corporations. There was a bill that was signed in 2018. It was when the Me Too movement was at its height and hadn't jumped the shark. Basically, Gavin Newsom created this thing called the Silence No More Act, which is you cannot use confidentiality and non-disparagement clauses in settlements or severance agreements to silence workers who have experienced anything they could reasonably classify as harassment or discrimination. And so the harassment part is obviously the relevant part to this. If Doublelift believes in good faith that what he experienced and what he's talking about constitutes harassment, then obviously this clause could potentially protect him. Potentially, you know, I'm not a lawyer, and I'm certainly not a lawyer in America, and I hate these clauses, you know, so I'm biased. But, you know, they're increasingly, these esports contracts are like this. You know, I remember back in 2014 when, funnily enough, with Bryce Blum, you know, we were looking at some of the contracts and what overreached and what didn't. You know, he was one of the first esports lawyers I brought in, along with Anna Bauman, who now works Rect Global. Oh, which is part of Rogue. They didn't they merge or something? Anyway, so Rogue technically, I guess. Yeah. Anyway, other way around. My bad. Those were like the first two esports lawyers that, I kind of welcomed in, did content with them, helped them with the lay of the land and everything. And, back when we were looking at contracts then, the contracts didn't feel as like overbearing. They felt a lot looser in terms of what you could and couldn't do, what you can and can't say. There was NDAs, but the NDAs only lasted 3 years. There wasn't any non-disparagement clauses that existed after you terminated your employment. And now they're just a nightmare. I mean, and a nightmare to the point of I'm not even too sure if they're, enforceable. I don't know which way it would go. But that to me is an unbelievably sad letter to read because, I really like Bryce. And I know he's only doing what he's been retained specifically to do. But obviously when Bryce first came in, he represented players and he typically represented players against organizations. And now he's representing an org against a player who, in my opinion, you should always have the right to speak negatively about somebody you had a prior working relationship with. It doesn't make any sense. In fact, there's an argument to be made that an organization, i.e. a much bigger stakeholder with a much bigger amount of power, can't disparage you when you go to work for someone else and they ask for a reference. That's fair. That makes sense because they're holding all the cards and holding all the power. But you, as an individual, no longer working for an org, not being able to badmouth them, what if they're a bad org? What if they do terrible things? What if, as we've seen, there is a charge to answer? Sure, TSM didn't break the law. Cool. I'm glad your investigation found that. But they've definitely not... Like, Reginald hasn't behaved in sterling fashion, has he, as a CEO? You can dress it up and jazz it up all you want. You wouldn't have been making wholesale changes and bringing in hotlines and stuff had that not been true. So... seems to me pretty sad that TSM would even get that upset about it to the tune where essentially for each negative thing Doublelift has said about it, they're looking to recoup $300,000, which I'm sure he could afford, actually. Probably one of the few people that could get sued for that amount and just cut a check. But it just seems absolutely outrageous to me that we're at that stage. And I just wish TSM executives could just stop behaving because the org TSM and FaZe, they just make esports look like what it is, which is a bunch of teenagers that got too much money too soon and they're just running around doing whatever they want with no adults in the room to stop them, and every time that they should be held accountable for something, they can just buy their way out of it. It's just awful optics. And what you should have done there is, you could have just issued a cease and desist. You don't have to go into a lawsuit. But obviously, yeah, that's where that's headed. So going to be interested to see where that ends up, because obviously when it's a civil suit, it'll be filed. I'll be able to get the documents, and just like all the other big esports lawsuits, we'll be able to go through them on screen. And I can't wait to see some of the stuff that comes out, because when you say retain all of your electronic information, that is essentially we are going to go to discovery on this. That's what they're saying. When we go to discovery, we're going to want to look at all of that stuff. We're going to look at what you're saying privately, because remember, the clause precludes you from even badmouthing them privately. So it's not just what he said on stream. It's every time he's messaged them, someone on Discord and said, God, Reginald's an asshole. It's every TSM are garbage. All of that is disparagement. And it's covered by these clauses on this contract. So listen, no, I don't fuck with that. Like, a lot of people are going, you shouldn't have signed it then. Obviously true. But then if you don't sign those types of contracts and agree to those clauses, you just don't get to play in the leagues. That's how they're holding the cards on that one. That clause is egregious, in my opinion, in the sense that I can't badmouth anyone privately. I'm entitled to a private opinion, surely. Surely I'm entitled to that. So, whatever. So TSM pushing for Employer of the Year. No surprises there.